Imagine holding a small, smooth bar of soap in your hands under warm water. You can smell the fresh scent of lemons or flowers as it creates soft, white bubbles on your skin. Today, we take this simple object for granted, but its long history started a very long time ago in a place called Babylon. Nearly 5,000 years ago, people living in that ancient city invented the very first soap-like material. They did not have modern factories or fancy perfumes, but they used their intelligence to find a way to make their daily lives much better and much cleaner. These ancient people combined fats from animals with wood, ash, and water to produce a thick, gray substance. At first, they did not use this mixture to wash their own bodies like we do today. Instead, they used it as an essential tool to clean their wool and cotton before making clothes. Archaeologists found old clay jars containing these materials and discovered that the recipe was very simple, yet effective for that time. This early discovery clearly shows that humans have always looked for ways to stay clean. It was the very first step in a long journey that lasted many centuries. Ancient Rome was a place of great builders and thinkers who lived many hundreds of years ago. These people were very interested in keeping their cities beautiful and their bodies healthy. Many stories about our modern world start in this famous land. One of the most famous legends tells us about the origins of the word we use for cleaning today. According to this old tale, there was a mountain called Mount Sapo where people performed special ceremonies. This mountain is very important because its name sounds very much like our modern word for soap. This story helps us understand how the ancient people thought about cleaning and the world. On top of this tall mountain, the ancient people often cooked meat over large fires for their traditional festivals. As the meat cooked, the hot animal fat would melt and drip down into the white wood ashes from the fire. Over a long period of time, a thick and strange mixture began to form on the ground. When the heavy rains came, they washed this mixture of grease and ash down the rocky slopes of the mountain. The water carried these materials all the way down to the banks of the river Tiber. This was the place where many people gathered every day to perform their daily chores. Many women went to the river every morning to wash the clothes of their families. They spent many hours scrubbing the fabric against the hard stones in the cold water. One day, they noticed something very unusual happening near the bottom of Mount Sapo. The water in that specific spot felt different on their hands and looked quite bubbly. When they rubbed their dirty clothes in this special water, the mud and stains disappeared much faster than before. They did not understand why this was happening, but they were very happy to find a way to make their difficult work much easier for everyone. The mixture of animal fat and wood ash had created a primitive form of soap. This chemical reaction happened naturally because of the heat from the fires and the minerals in the ash. Although these people did not have modern laboratories, they were very good at observing the world around them. They realized that this slippery substance was a powerful tool for removing dirt and grease from their colorful wool garments. This legendary discovery at the river Tiber became a famous part of history. Even if the story is just a myth, it explains why the Romans are so closely linked to the history of washing. While the story of Mount Sapo is very charming, the real history of Roman hygiene is even more impressive. Instead of using bars of soap like we do today, the Romans built enormous and beautiful buildings called bathhouses. These bathhouses were some of the most important places in every Roman city. They were not just places to get clean, but also places where friends met to talk about the news of the day. Thousands of people would visit these grand buildings every single afternoon to relax and take care of their bodies. These bathhouses showed that the Romans valued cleanliness more than many other cultures. The way the Romans cleaned their skin was very different from our modern habits. Instead of using a bubbly bar of soap, they used high-quality olive oil. A person would go into a warm room and rub the smooth oil all over their arms, legs, and chest. After the oil was on their skin, they used a special curved tool made of metal called a strigil. They would scrape the tool across their skin to remove the oil, along with all the dirt and sweat from their busy day. This process left their skin feeling very soft and clean, even without the use of many bubbles. A visit to the bathhouse was a long and careful process that involved several different rooms with different temperatures. First, the people would go into a room called the tepidarium, which was pleasantly warm. After spending some time there, they moved into the calidarium, which was a very hot room filled with steam. The heat helped their pores open up, so the dirt could come out more easily. Finally, they would jump into a cold pool of water called the frigidarium to refresh their bodies and close their pores. This cycle of heat and cold was considered very good for the blood and for strength. For the people of ancient Rome, bathing was a social event that lasted for several hours. Men and women would talk about business and politics while they relaxed in the warm water. They believed that a clean body was necessary for a healthy mind. By building large systems of pipes called aqueducts, they brought fresh water from the mountains into the city centers. This constant supply of clean water allowed them to keep their bathhouses running every day. Their commitment to hygiene helped the Roman Empire stay strong for many hundreds of years. This focus on health was a major step forward. Even though they did not have the convenient bars of soap that we have in our bathrooms today, the Romans were masters of cleanliness. They used the materials they had to create a world that was much cleaner than those that came before it. The legend of Mount Sapo reminds us that the journey toward modern hygiene started with simple observations of nature. These ancient people paved the way for future generations to improve these methods. As we look back at their great stone bathhouses, we see how the basic idea of washing has always been about more than just removing dirt from the skin. During the long years of the Middle Ages, the knowledge of making soap began to travel across the vast continent of Europe. As people moved from one place to another, they shared many different secrets about how to keep things clean. This period was very important because it changed how humans thought about their personal comfort and health. In many small villages, people still used very simple methods, but in the growing cities, things were starting to change quite rapidly. Makers of soap started to experiment with new ingredients that they found in nature to improve their work and create something truly special for the world. The warm regions near the Mediterranean Sea became the most famous places for this growing trade. In beautiful cities like Venice, Marseille, and Castile, workers discovered that they had access to wonderful natural resources. Instead of using the heavy and smelly fats from animals, these clever people began to use clear and golden olive oil. This was a very significant change in the history of cleaning products. The olive oil made the soap much lighter and more pleasant to touch. These early makers spent many hours perfecting their craft to ensure that every single bar they produced was of the highest quality. These new bars of soap were very different from the dark and rough substances used in the past. Because they were made from plants, they did not have the strong or unpleasant smell of old animal fats. Instead, they had a fresh and natural scent that people really enjoyed. When a person used this soap, it felt very soft and smooth against their skin. It did not cause the same irritation or redness that older cleaning materials often did. This made the act of washing much more enjoyable for those who were lucky enough to own a piece of this luxury product. In the busy city of Venice, merchants brought exotic oils and perfumes from distant lands to add to their soap recipes. Venice was a center of global trade, so the makers there had access to the best ingredients in the whole world. They worked in small shops, mixing their oils with great care and patience. People from many different countries wanted to buy Venetian soap because it was known for being the most luxurious. The city became famous for its high standards and its beautiful products. This helped the local economy grow and made the soap makers respected members of their society. Across the sea in France, the city of Marseille was also becoming a world leader in the art of soap making. The workers there followed very strict rules to make sure their soap was always the same high quality. They used the many olive trees that grew in the sun around the city to provide plenty of oil. This specific type of soap became known as Savon de Marseille, and people still talk about it today. The process was slow and required a lot of labor, but the results were worth the effort. Every bar was carefully shaped and stamped with a mark to show its origin. In the region of Castile in Spain, makers developed a very special type of white soap that was famous for being extremely pure. Unlike other soaps that might be brown or green, Castile soap was bright and clean. It was made using only the finest olive oil and was gentle enough to be used on very sensitive skin. Because it was so pure, it became a favorite among royal families and noble people across Europe. The secret of making this white soap was guarded very closely by the families who lived there. They took great pride in their ability to create such a beautiful item. Although soap was becoming more popular, it was still an expensive luxury that most people could not afford. The ingredients, like fine olive oil and imported perfumes, cost a lot of money to buy. Additionally, the process of making the soap took many weeks of hard work and careful waiting. This meant that only wealthy families and high officials could have these bars in their homes. For a normal worker, a bar of soap might cost as much as a week of food. Most people continued to use plain water or very simple mixtures to clean themselves and their clothes. To protect their trade, the soap makers formed groups called guilds. These guilds were like modern organizations that made rules for everyone in the profession. They decided who could become a soap maker and how the products should be made. If someone wanted to learn the trade, they had to work as an apprentice for many years. The guilds also kept their recipes secret, so that people in other cities could not copy their work. This system helped to maintain a high level of quality and ensured that the makers could earn a good living from their specialized and difficult skills. By the end of the Middle Ages, the soap trade was established as one of the most important industries in Europe. The methods developed by the makers in the Mediterranean region changed the way people thought about cleanliness and comfort. Even though it was not yet available to everyone, the idea of using a pleasant bar of soap was spreading to every corner of the continent. These skilled workers laid the foundation for the future of personal hygiene. They proved that soap could be more than just a tool. It could be a beautiful product that improved the lives of the people who used it. In the late 1700s, the world was beginning to change in very big ways. During this time, soap was still a luxury that only rich people could afford to buy. Most ordinary families had to make their own cleaning supplies at home using very old methods. These methods were difficult and often did not produce very good results for washing clothes or skin. The main reason soap was so expensive was because one of the most important ingredients was very hard to find. This ingredient was called soda ash, and it was necessary to turn fats into real cleaning soap for the home. Before this special time in history, makers of soap had to burn large amounts of seaweed or other plants to get a tiny bit of soda ash. This was a very slow and tiring process that cost a lot of money for the factory owners. Because the raw materials were so rare, the final bars of soap were sold for a high price in the markets. Many poor families had to live without soap for many weeks or even months because they could not pay for it. Everyone knew that a better way to make this key ingredient was needed for the entire world to benefit. In the year 1783, the French Academy of Sciences offered a very large reward to anyone who could solve this problem. They wanted a scientist to find a way to make soda ash from common sea salt, which was everywhere. A brilliant French chemist named Nicolas Leblanc decided to take on this difficult challenge. He spent many long hours working in his laboratory to find the perfect chemical reaction. He believed that if he could use simple salt, the world would have an endless supply of the ingredients needed for making cleaning products for every single person. After years of hard work, Nicolas Leblanc finally discovered a successful process in the year 1791. His method used sulfuric acid, coal, and limestone to transform common salt into the precious soda ash. This was a massive breakthrough for the world of science and industry. For the first time in history, humans did not have to rely on burning plants to get what they needed for soap. This discovery meant that factories could now produce thousands of pounds of soda ash in a very short amount of time for a very low cost to the owner. Nicolas Leblanc opened his very first factory near Paris to use his new scientific method. He hoped that his invention would make him a very successful man and help his country grow stronger. However, the timing was very difficult because the French Revolution was happening during these same years. The government took his factory away and did not pay him the prize money that he had earned with his hard work. Despite these many sad personal problems, his scientific discovery changed the future of the soap industry forever. Other countries soon began to use his special method in their own large factories to produce more items. Because of this new process, the amount of soap being made started to grow very quickly. In the past, a small shop might only make a few dozen bars of soap in 1 week. Now, with the help of the Leblanc process, large buildings could produce hundreds of bars every single day. The price of soap began to drop lower and lower as the supply increased in the local shops. Soon, even the poorest workers in the cities could afford to buy a small bar of soap to wash their faces and their tired hands after a long day of work. This change was extremely important for the health of people living in crowded towns during the industrial era. Before this time, diseases spread very quickly because people did not have the tools to stay clean. Now that soap was cheap and easy to find, people began to learn that washing could help them stay healthy. Doctors started to notice that families who used soap regularly did not get sick as often as those who did not. The scientific work of one man helped to save many lives by making cleanliness a possibility for every single person in the growing modern world of the time. The Leblanc process also helped other industries grow during the late 1700s and early 1800s. For example, the glass industry and the textile industry also needed soda ash for their daily work. This meant that the discovery made by Nicolas Leblanc helped to build the modern world in many different ways. However, the impact on soap was the most visible change for regular families living in Europe. They could finally enjoy the feeling of being clean without spending all of their money on a single luxury item from a specialized merchant in a very big and busy city. As we look back at this history, we can see how science and daily life are connected. A chemist, working with salt and acid in a small lab, created a way for millions of people to improve their personal hygiene. This was the beginning of the end for the old ways of making soap by hand in small batches. The era of the factory had arrived, and with it came the promise of a cleaner and safer life for everyone. The bar of soap was no longer just for kings and queens. It was now a tool for all of humanity to enjoy. As the middle of the 1800s arrived, the world began to change very quickly because of the Industrial Revolution. Huge factories with tall chimneys started to appear in many big cities around the world. These factories used new machines that could work much faster than any human hands. For the very first time, people were able to produce things like clothes, tools, and soap in massive quantities. Before this time, making a single bar of soap took a lot of effort and many hours of slow work. Now, the new machines could mix large amounts of ingredients together in giant metal pots to create hundreds of bars at once. Large companies saw a great opportunity to make money by selling these bars to everyone. They built enormous buildings dedicated entirely to the science of cleaning. These businesses hired many workers who spent their days monitoring the boiling liquid and cutting the finished soap into perfect shapes. Because they produced so much, the cost of making each bar went down significantly. This meant that the companies could sell their products for just a few small coins. For the first time in history, the average person could walk into a local shop and find a stack of soap waiting for them on the wooden shelf. The owners of these factories realized that people wanted more than just a functional cleaning tool. They wanted something that felt special and smelled nice during their morning wash. To make their products more attractive, the companies started adding lovely perfumes like lavender, rose, and lemon to the mixture. They also discovered how to add bright colors to the bars to make them look beautiful in a bathroom. A plain brown bar was no longer enough for the modern shopper of the 19th century. These small changes made the simple act of washing feel like a tiny bit of luxury for ordinary families. Each company wanted to make sure that people remembered their specific product. They began to give their soaps catchy names and wrapped them in decorative paper to keep them clean. This was the beginning of famous brands that some people still recognize today. By putting their names on the packaging, the manufacturers built trust with their customers. If a family liked one specific bar, they would look for that same name the next time they went to the market. This competition between companies pushed everyone to make their soap better and more affordable than the soaps made by their neighbors or other business rivals. To sell all this new soap, companies started using clever advertisements in newspapers and on large, colorful posters. These ads were designed to grab the attention of people walking down the busy streets. The pictures often showed happy children with clean faces or elegant ladies with glowing skin. The messages told people that using soap would make their lives better and their homes much more pleasant. This was a new way of talking to customers that had never been seen before. It turned soap into something that people did not just need, but something that they really wanted to own and use every day. During this same period, scientists were making important discoveries about why people got sick. They realized that tiny invisible things, called germs, lived on dirty hands and could spread diseases. The soap companies used this information in their advertisements to teach the public about the importance of hygiene. They explained that washing with soap could kill these germs and keep a family safe from illness. This was a very powerful message because many people were afraid of getting sick. Suddenly, washing your hands was not just about removing dirt, but it was also a vital way to protect your health and your loved ones. As more and more people moved from the quiet countryside into crowded cities to work in factories, the streets became very dirty. Thousands of families lived close together in small buildings where germs could spread easily from person to person. Staying clean became much more difficult in these dusty and smoky environments. People realized that they had to wash themselves and their clothes more often to stay healthy. The availability of cheap, factory-made soap was a lifesaver for these city dwellers. It allowed them to maintain a sense of pride and cleanliness, even in the middle of a busy and industrial town. Because soap was now so easy to find and buy, the daily habits of people began to change. In the past, many people only washed their whole bodies once a month, or even less. Now, with a bar of soap in every home, washing became a regular part of the daily routine. Mothers taught their children to wash their hands before every meal and after playing outside in the mud. This shift in behavior had a huge impact on the overall health of the population. Fewer people became sick, and children grew up stronger because their environments were much cleaner than they had been before. This era truly transformed soap from a luxury item for the rich into a common household product. In previous centuries, only the wealthiest kings and queens could afford high-quality soap. Now, even a simple factory worker could have a bar of scented soap on their washstand. It was no longer a sign of status, but a basic necessity for every single human being. This change was one of the greatest steps forward for human society. It proved that science and industry could work together to improve the lives of everyone, regardless of how much money they had in their small pockets. In the 21st century, we have many different types of soap for every possible need. Modern scientists have created synthetic detergents and liquid soaps that work well in different kinds of water. We can now choose products that are very gentle on our skin, or items that have special ingredients to help with health problems. Today, soap is found in every home, school, and office around the world. Whether it is a colorful liquid in a plastic bottle or a traditional solid bar, it remains one of the simplest and most effective ways to protect ourselves from getting sick every day. The long history of this product shows how a simple mixture of fats and oils changed the world and improved human life. Even though we have advanced technology today, the basic idea of washing away dirt remains essential for our survival. We use it to keep our families safe and our environments clean. From the ancient city of Babylon to our modern kitchens, the bar of soap has been a quiet hero in human history. It reminds us that even small inventions can have a massive impact on the world over thousands of years. If you have listened this far, please like and subscribe to follow our next videos.